Yeah, I think so.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Kimberly Johnson with
Pastor B. Michelle Horton
and
Reverend Tamika Holder,
representing Fellowship of Women Clergy. And we need you to scooch in just a little bit, Reverend Horton.
Oh, okay.
Just
Scooch in. There we go.
We want you to see all of us. And we just wanted to take some time and do a little bit of a recap on a conversation that Fellowship of Women Clergy, FWC, had back in September. So every month or so, FWC meets at Corner Bakery, and we have something called Corner Bakery Conversations, where we spend an hour to 2 hours talking about some particular issue. And typically there's some reading that is required prior to the conversation. And so people come to the table with some knowledge or information about whatever the subject is. And Reverend Horton and Reverend Tamika coordinate FWC's Corner Bakery Conversations. So back in September, we had a conversation on the topic of consent. Probably most people are familiar with the Me Too movement, which then led to the Church Too movement, which brought pretty broad awareness about sexual abuse and other types of abuses that happen in the clergy context. And we just began to talk about what it means in the context of Christian environments to really have autonomy over our own bodies. And that led to this topic of consent. So is that a decent introduction?
I think so, yeah.
Anything you would add to that?
That's right.
Okay. So just join in with us as we're sharing a bit of our recap. We invite you to leave comments, to ask questions. But we just thought we had a small group when we had the actual conversation, and we thought it was important to share some of the things we discussed more broadly. So why not use Facebook Live? Hey, right? So let's talk a little bit about touch. This is going to be conversational. So in general, what are your thoughts about touch? Is touch a good thing, bad thing? Are we supposed to just avoid, as Christians, having any human contact with one another? What are we saying here?
I think touch is a very good thing. As you know, hugs are, very nurturing, and even the touch of someone, a friend, to a hand held. But I think it's important to understand that it doesn't mean that that's something that you should just do haphazardly, that we have to think more about why we're touching someone and who we're touching and whether they are receptive to that touch as well.
So we teach our children about good touch and bad touch.
Yes.
And I think now we need to teach our adult church members
Yes.
about good touch
and
bad touch.
Right.
Wanted touch and unwanted touch.
Yeah.
So what would be good touch in the context of the church? What would make it acceptable, do you think, in the context of a church? And then what makes it unacceptable?
One, if it's wanted, especially when we have those times of greeting during worship, when, right after the welcome, they're like, go hug a neighbor or go greet the new people or the visitors. And it's just like, hey, hold on. It's, if you want to hug, then that's great. Because I know there are a couple people at church that I love to see because I love them, and I know that they care about me, and I care about them. And so it always makes me feel good, no matter how stressed out my week was, to know that I'm going to see them and get a warm, welcoming, and loving hug from them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And go ahead.
I agree, first of all, about that when you care for someone and somebody cares for you, you have a relationship with this person, then some barriers have been broken through already. And that it's okay to hug or to greet them in a particular way with touch. But that is not for everyone just because we are in a sanctuary.
Good. So the relationship matters. I'm hearing you say the relationship matters, the context matters, and the person's will matters. whether or not they consent to whatever the contact is going to be. So we talked a little bit in our conversation before about comfort zones, that people have different comfort zones. People have different ideas about what should happen in their personal space. Some people have experienced abuse in their past. And for some folks, unwanted touch can be triggering for them. And that's not something people wear on their faces. We don't wear signs that say trigger warning, right? But there are sometimes nonverbal communications that people give to communicate that they really don't want you to invade their space. So for people who maybe have not been able to verbally say, no, don't touch me, or I'm not in the mood, or I don't want to hug, what might be some of the nonverbal signs or cues that people could be aware of to know that they should be hesitant in terms of invading somebody's personal space?
So if you say, go greet your neighbor, and I don't move,
that's a great example.
I think that it's clear that I'm not interested in engaging for whatever reason. And I think also people need to be like, you don't have to give it, we don't owe anybody an explanation for not wanting somebody to be in our space. I think sometimes being in a church community, like especially in a worship experience, people are made to feel guilty or to feel bad because they don't want to hug or have physical contact with people. And we need to be clear again about having autonomy of our personhood, that if that's not something that we want to do, that it's okay to be like, no, I don't want to do that, and then not have to be grilled or aggravated about not wanting to engage.
And shamed.
Yes.
I think that's a big thing, because it's almost like, what's the matter with you? You know, you had a bad week, and forced to give an emotion or touch that is not something that you choose to do in that moment. I totally agree. And no one an explanation. Nor should we be badgered to give one.
Right. And I see our sister here. She said a stare for sure.
Oh, okay.
Let's give the stare that says, "Don't touch me." Come on. All right, y'all got that? Y'all got that? That's a good one. What about this? That's a cue that says, I do not want to embrace you at this time.
And unfortunately, for some people, they come in right for you because your arms are folded.
I'm gonna get her. I'm gonna make her smile. All God's children smile all the time,
I experienced something like that in a church. I won't say the name of the church. I think you might know the story, but it was that pass the peace moment where I was a visitor at this church, and I bit the bullet. I'm not much of a handshaker, but I shook some hands. I had my wipes with me. And when it looked like it was over, I pulled out my wipes, I wiped my hands, and I got back into my closed position. And a woman watched me wipe my hands and then came over to me to touch me and to extend her hand to me. It was so shady and so dirty. I mean, it just was so inconsiderate and so rude and so unwelcoming to a visitor. That it made me not want to go back there.
And I think though the issue too is that people think that they really are saying, I welcome you. It's the opposite of what you're saying. You felt welcome already, so you did not need anything extra based on your respect of your own human personhood. But people feel like, if you don't touch, you don't pass the peace, you don't get up, you don't hug, it's something wrong as a Christian, and we got to get past that.
So let's come back to cues for a minute, because you just raised something on a phrase that you use a lot: impact versus intent. So what a person may intend out of goodwill, out of their heart, and the impact it actually has on somebody can be two different things. Say more about that, what that looks like.
I mean, I want to assume the best for that people in their activities and what they're doing are attempting to be kind and show love. But if what you're doing does not help me feel that kindness and that love, then understanding that when I explain that to you, however I explain or show that to you, that you are able to receive that and not take it as an affront to your personhood, but just understand that if you are trying to make me feel welcome and to make me feel loved, and that this is a space that I should be able to be in, that you can accept what I'm telling you. Like,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
That's good. Some other cues that we talked about that people should just make a mental note of is the wave from across the room. That means this. Don't come any further. We good. We good. We good. The fist bump. Shout out to my brother Deacon. You know who you are, who always gives me the fist bump. I appreciate that. Right? It's cool. That's acceptable communication. So let's talk about the turning to the side for the side hug. So there's some, I'm not just going to say men, because women do it too, but there's some people who will come in for the full
body,
full frontal.
Yes, the full frontal.
The full frontal hug.
That's about right.
The close in full frontal.
Come here.
Like the we family full frontal. We married full frontal, but we not.
Yeah,
we're not. Listen. When someone turns to give you the side hug instead of the full frontal, just make the turn. Don't force somebody into an embrace that they don't want to give to you. That's a little, I won't say lecherous, but
it's too much. Like, it's way too much. And I'm not the biggest person. And then, like, so if somebody is bigger than me, you come in, you about to give me a whole chiropractic back realignment. And or like it's almost a hug that feel like, are you trying to cop a feel? Like, what is going on here?
Yeah. It's realizing that everybody is not to be treated the same exact way, and to understand what is appropriate for each person. There are people that I love to hug. They're mostly women, right? Because I have a relationship with them. I personally do not ever feel comfortable with frontal hugs from men for various reasons. I'm a little bigger than you, right? And I have some things that are, I don't want to touch like that. You know, touching like that for me triggers something. And then I have to deal with that through the rest of the service. Right. And we have many people like that, men and women. So we don't want to just make it.
Exactly, you know, men and women. Just want to give a quick shout out. It's good to see you, Evangelist Bonds and Reverend Hale and Elder Patty and Pastor Mitchell. Pastor Mitchell said, make the turn. Make. Come on, you gotta be a sequel. Come on.
One more time.
Make the turn. All right. Okay.
Sorry, I'm a new kid on the block.
Hashtag make the turn.
Hashtag make the turn.
Come on, Pastor Mitchell. You're good at that.
Hashtag too much. Some other ways, how about verbally, we can communicate non-consent? How do we communicate? How do we use our voice to say we do not agree to the touch that's happening here? What do we say?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. No works like no. Without anything after it, that works too.
Yeah.
But no, thank you. No. She did hashtag make the turn. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you. Amen.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not a hugger.
Right. And I love Jesus. Isn't that something? Pastor Mitchell, we're going to use you today. I'm not a hugger and I love Jesus. Hashtag.
And I love it. Can you hashtag that for us, please? We can't do two things at once. We can't type and talk. Hashtag not a hugger. Hashtag but I love Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Amen. We have to find our voices, and I think sometimes some of us have been taught to be polite, even at the expense of our own comfort, even at the expense of our own safety, because we don't want to hurt that person's feelings. Yeah. Because I'm going to go there, they're a family member, or because they're the pastor.
Yes.
or because of whatever their title might be.
Leadership.
I'm just going to say this. There have been some men leaders who are well known and respected who have been inappropriate. I'm just going to say that. Like, and I'm not even going to talk about intent. Maybe they intended to be, maybe they did not. But they have to respect I got to make the turn on you.
Yeah.
I got to make the turn. And no means no. And how about you're married on top of that?
Yeah.
How about that?
And
I'm sorry. So my point is, because of sometimes who the person is, we don't use our voice.
Exactly.
Because we're more concerned about what they think of us than the fact that we may feel violated.
Yes.
Even if they didn't intend it to be so.
Yeah.
So we have to be able, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, doesn't matter how old you are, if you're 5 years old and somebody makes you feel uncomfortable, you should be allowed to use your voice.
I had a very personal situation with my grandson where a member of one of the churches I was at ran up to him and picked him up, and he ran to me, and he was shaking, right? He was like maybe 7 at the time. And I said something, and wow, he's just a kid. I was just trying to show him. I mean, like, this is what I'm doing. And I'm like, that's not the point. He was uncomfortable, right? And so it's a mindset, because we've been doing this so long. Hopefully this Facebook Live will just kind of have us think a little bit more thoughtfully over this issue of consent, because he was shook for a couple of days, and I had to, she really didn't mean anything, and this is what she meant, but that impact and intent, 2 different things. So we do have to be very careful with children and women and men.
Yeah, I mean, I think that church, the spaces of worship, not just church, but spaces of worship are one of the most vulnerable places, because of the fact that we are always with this, physical contact to show affection, and not, we don't have enough conversations about consent.
Right.
I'm sure this is a conversation for another time, but in another setting, I was leading a Bible study and just even talking about discussing this topic with children, so that even at a young age, when you are not happy with someone, like, that's still your body. You should have the ability to be able to say no if you don't want to have physical contact with somebody else, even if they're a family member. Like, I think that when we make kids hug uncle so-and-so or aunt so-and-so, like, it teaches them to turn off their own internal alert system.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's how we become adults that become more vulnerable, because we don't listen to what our body is telling us.
Yes.
We're like, no, so-and-so is okay, even though our body is telling us, you're not comfortable with that. Whether it's valid or invalid, that we should be able to honor how we are feeling, and the other person not take offense to it.
Yeah.
Yes. I like that.
But that's why this is important, this conversation that we're having, because it's helping us to think about how we are interacting with one another, because we've gotten very comfortable with doing certain things that we never should have been comfortable doing.
Yes.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, but a lot of abuse has gone unchecked in churches for so long, and in other environments, in our families, all over the place. But I just want to share this one resource, and if you have other resources or recommendations, we encourage you to type them in the box, whatever that's called. Just type it in the box. But GraceNet. Grace is an acronym for Godly Response to Abuse in Christian Environments. And actually, I think their website is netgrace.org or something like that. But they have a number of resources for churches and other Christian organizations to help make their environments more safe. And GraceNet was started by Boz. I cannot pronounce the man's last name, but a former attorney who left his practice really to address this issue, because he saw so much abuse taking place inside of churches, sexual abuse in particular. And I remember going to a workshop that he facilitated, and he talked about the fact that by the time someone gets arrested for sex crimes and so forth, they have already had so many victims. It was like in the hundreds. It was some outrageous number. And so, again, that's not to say everybody is a predator. We're not saying that. But we are saying that we need to be careful about creating safe spaces for everyone. And and minimally, we need to honor people's autonomy over their own selves, over their own bodies, and be respectful of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, any final thoughts?
I think, and this just may be elementary, but just understand what consent means. It means that you are giving someone permission to something, or someone that you are, and so you have every right to give that consent, and you have every right to withhold that consent.
Yes. Always. That's good. Any final thoughts?
Just, we need to keep this conversation moving, like continue to spread it in different spaces, and just keep on talking about it, understanding and knowing that like it's okay to say yes and it's okay to say no, and it is your body, and it's your body, and that other people can't tell you what to do with your body, and that we need to keep having this conversation.
Yes. I'll say this and I'll turn it over to you. But one of the things I really appreciated when we had our initial conversation about this in September is that one of the women who was with us from FWC, she said, "I'm naturally a hugger. I'm just a hugger. I'm affectionate." And she acknowledged that this was hard for her. And she's the kind of person, I mean, we all know her, just a beautiful, loving soul. And it was good to see that just by us sitting down together in that space and talking about it, that she realized that sometimes she might impose her will on someone else who might not want the affection that she shows. And so we have to be self-aware too. We have to know our personalities. Some of us are more affectionate than others, and it's okay to be the way that God made you to be.
Yeah.
So no one's saying, your hugging is a wrong thing, or the fact that you're demonstrative is a wrong. It's not a wrong thing. It just has to do with context, relationship, and consent, and being respectful of other people, and realizing that even though your intentions may be wonderful, the impact may be harmful.
Yeah. Some of the ways I think we can do that is just ask, do you mind if we hug? Are you a hugger? Right? Mm-hmm. And hear what they say, and don't take it personally. So maybe just checking with that person, whoever it is, before we greet each other. If you see the wave, you know that they're not a hugger. Pound, these are cues, but it is more than all right to say, do you mind if I hug? Do you mind if we hug?
I'm going to throw this out. Somebody's not going to like it. But even at the altar, some people, they want, I'm going to lay hands on you with your hand. May I touch you? With my hand behind your back. Like, they all in on you sometimes at the altar. And for some people, that they just lost focus on what they came up for, because now your arms around their back, it becomes a different situation.
Yeah. Invasive.
So I think even being sensitive, and I think we should have altar calls, and I do believe in laying on of hands. But I think even in that space, be sensitive to the people that you're ministering to. And again, what might be triggers for them, even in an attempt to do ministry. Just be aware. Be aware.
Yeah.
Hashtag be aware. Come on, Pastor Mitchell.
She is on it.
Is she on it? I can't see.
Yeah. Thank you for that too. Yeah.
So thank you all for just taking this time with Fellowship of Women Clergy this afternoon. And again, if you have any resources or suggestions, please type them in the box, or just any comments. We welcome those as well. This is for our sisters and for our brothers. This is a conversation for everybody. So please, if you have something to contribute, do that. We welcome that. All right. I think we're out. We out?
Yeah, hashtag we're out.
Hashtag FWC. Hashtag sisterhood.
Yes.
Amen. We love you. I love you. Bye-bye.
Peace and blessings.